The first thing you do when you do research, whether you are a practitioner in the classroom or an academic in a university setting is, people always say the research says, but does it? You'd be amazed. It's sort of like Facebook or the internet. Not everything you hear is true. And not everything people say about gifted children are true. There's a lot of myths out there about what's best and how they'll feel. And I hear a lot of people talking about gifted adolescents. I don't know that they talk enough to gifted adolescents to find out what they really do think. So I studied it. And one of the things you have to do when you study gifted education and you're looking at it is to go back and look at the historical perspective of what is gifted education. Do you as educators really know how long we've been trying to define it? And so far, nobody agrees. It started in the late 1800s. And at that time, there were insane asylums where people got just put away more or less in England and in the United States, a loony bin, so to speak. And a lot of academic research was on the mentally handicapped. But the first person, Galton, was the one who goes, no one's really ever studied really smart people. And his conclusion was that it was genetic, that really smart people had really smart children, and they grew up to be successful. Looking back on that, almost 150 years later, we realize that he only looked at one demographic of successful people, and he only looked at men. But it was just that first theory of, is there a genetic component to giftedness? The next person to come along, Terman, that's when they first used the Stanford Binet and established intelligence test. And he picked 100, and they looked at that and they said that's average. And that's when we looked at 2 standard deviations above the mean is in a gifted range. But again, he was only using Anglo males, and he was looking at high level of success as an indicator of giftedness. But what's good about his study is it was going on into the 1990s. It is the longest continuous study of gifted education, and the people, it's like 1920s, 1910, he started collecting data, and as those people are just now dying in their 90s, the last of that data is being turned in. So they do have a lifelong amount of research that's been collected on who they identified as gifted as young people and have tracked their success or lack of it to their adulthood. But again, it was limited. Hollingworth is one I wish every one of you would look up and read. Hollingworth, it doesn't have an S in it, it's not Hollingsworth. Because she was a woman, she was way ahead of her time on women's rights. 1925. Couldn't vote, but she could study gifted. And what she went is, I think there might be some gifted women out there too. And I think that if we differentiated curriculum and we had good counseling support, that gifted children would do better, that there are social and emotional needs. What she did notice, which was not a sign of giftedness, but was in her research, was that gifted female young people didn't grow up to the level of eminence that men did. And that was a result of her time in history. And as I said, they couldn't even vote, so how could they, they were, the social restraints of the culture at the time that she studied them prevented the kind of eminence in some of the women that she might have seen if she was studying today. But it is the beginning of differentiation. She's called the mother of gifted education. Gagne is another one who looked at different giftedness talents. What are gifted? What are talents? Well, how does that work? If you're not allowed to, intelligence is one thing, and aptitude, achievement is another. And it's sort of that old story of Would Michael Phelps have been a world-class swimmer if he was in Arizona and didn't have access to a swimming pool? You know, if you don't have that opportunity to express your talents, will it come out and express itself? Renzulli is still doing fabulous research, and the best research, if you really are thinking of getting a master's or a doctorate in gifted education, University of Connecticut is where you need to look. And what he's doing there is still phenomenal. And he had the idea of a three-part thing, that it takes task commitment as well as achievement and ability to be gifted to. It's not just, you can have a lot of highly intelligent people that never accomplish anything. They don't ever even get started on anything, and it's not, intelligence alone is not the only part of being gifted. And his model was school-wide enrichment models, and to allow opportunities to express children's talents, and that might bring up those introverted, gifted children that you never thought were gifted until you saw what they could do in the right environment with the right materials. And Gardner's who came up with multiple intelligences. Now, multiple intelligence is really a popular idea of it. Some people are athletic, some people are leaders, some people are artistically gifted in addition to academically. There's actually no scientific research. There's no brain research behind it. But teachers like it because you feel like you do find strengths in different areas. But multiple intelligence, it sort of goes more toward the multiple talents, really, when you look at it. And the intelligence part that Renzulli's talking about, you have to sort of put those multiple talents together to find what we consider gifted in most public schools in the United States. Now, the most recent new edition of a definition is with Subotnick and his friends, and I like his definition in that giftedness manifests itself at different ages. That in elementary school we're looking for potential. In adolescence we're looking for achievement in their area of strength or their talents. And in adulthood, it's about eminence, or it's the ability to rise to an extraordinary level of new achievement or performance when compared to others in the same field. So they had sort of a little more fluid definition of this is what gifted looks like. This is who you think of as gifted. We identify for potential, and in many districts we never reevaluate. In some districts, they do for potential, and then they reevaluate because they have a different program when they hit about 6th grade or middle school, because potential may be more creativity-based, and achievement may be more academic-based. It's like it's a different program, we're serving it in different ways. What's the right way? Whatever your district decides is best for your population. One of the things that I stress with all the people I've talked with in the last 15 years of doing presentations like this and training teachers is that it's very important to me that you serve the child and not the label. You may have a child who never qualifies on a test, but has so many talents, and so you just see it in them. And giving them the opportunities to develop that, they may reach a level of identification according to your state standards at a later age. But that doesn't mean we should deny them opportunities to grow and find their true passions. There is a lot of great research right now that's quantitative, which means they do lab studies, mathematical things on the brain right now. And I know you've heard brain-based learning, you know about Eric Jensen and all those kinds of things, which I love and are great. But I know too many parents and teachers who think when a child gets to high school, their brain is about as developed as it's going to be. We put a lot of emphasis on brain stuff and teaching, and they say, oh, if they can't read by 6, this is a potentially at-risk kid. You know, we got to make sure that we get them while that brain's developing. What you might not know is that socially and emotionally, high school age adolescents are the most vulnerable. That's when they're developing their sense of self and where I fit in the world. And stress can actually cause permanent changes to the brain itself during adolescent years. Adolescent brains are changed more by social stress than they are physical stress. There has been a lot of reports lately about suicide in adolescents. I just read an article last week on Facebook about Leander ISD, great district here in Texas. They've had 5 adolescent suicides since September. And they're going, why is this? And some are saying, well, it's social media. Well, it's family troubles. And some of them are saying this is a great district and these kids are really stressed out over their GPA and being ahead of the other person. And that, we hear about it now because of social media and things. But I'm an old lady, and when I was in high school, I saw a group of men, boys, beat up who was going to be the valedictorian to the point that he could not be at graduation at all. They beat him to a pulp over his, it was more, it wasn't a gang thing, because back in the 70s gangs weren't quite like that, but it was more like, we'll show him. There are many schools, did you know this, that they do not announce class ranks and all till like the day of, so that people don't sabotage each other's last assignments and maybe mess up their GPA. There are examples of that all over the state and the nation because of stress over academic things. And allow some students to tell their story from their perspective. The number one thing I can tell you is talk to these kids and let them tell you what's stressful for them, what they want, rather than you talking to another teacher about what you think they want, because it's a whole different perspective. And so these were my research questions. What was stressful to a gifted child in high school? How did you react? What coping strategies did you use? And reaction is different than coping. It's like, did you cry? Did you get mad? Did you yell? Did you go into the room and shut the door? Then how'd you get over it? How'd you cope with that? And what support systems were available to you, which is different than did you use them? And what challenges did you face, which means even with that, were there times when that support system wasn't enough, and what was your, what was the main thing that got you through high school? And to do them, I use something that's considered a newer approach, which is to use like art therapy, is to allow them to create a collage to help tell the story. Now, I did all this research, not in person, but through WebEx, which is like Skype, but you can record it, and so you can play it back like a webinar. Collage is a way to describe emotions and memories using pictures, and I learned so much from it. Because if you're looking at a person like in Skype and you're asking them questions and they're talking to you, there's still a little bit of a protective barrier there. But if they do a collage, they forget they're talking to you because they're looking at their collage and they're remembering their memories of why that was significant for them. So let me show you a few. I'm going to have to switch screens here, so please bear with me. I'm terrified this won't work well. Oh, don't go away completely. There we go. I did it. Yay me. All right. All right. This is one of the collage. And they put it together, and then they made a PDF of it and sent it to me, which is a great way. I don't need construction paper and things glued on paper to put into a book. So this is, of course, turned sideways, but this young lady is in her early 30s now. She is a PhD with the university, and she's remembering being an adolescent. She's remembering her high school, public school experience. She felt like Superman. She felt like she could do anything. She had self-confidence. She was a rubber boot. Everything just dripped off of her. Nothing bothered her. She felt like these underripe strawberries. She was just ripening on what she really wanted to do. There were some thorny issues in high school, and what it was this student went to early college high school.